How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to 2A News Now. And as always, I appreciate everybody that takes time to watch my videos. Finally, after 4 years of the Biden administration doing all they can do to take away our Second Amendment rights, as well as weaponizing the ATF, and also their zero tolerance policy and other things, the ATF has issued new guidelines for FFLs. It was announced a few weeks ago that the Biden administration's zero tolerance rule for FFLs was over. And now there's new and fair policies for FFLs. On Friday, the ATF released new guidelines for FFLs and ATF agents. And here's what ATF Acting Director Daniel Driscoll had to say. The new policy replaces the 2021 Enhanced Regulatory Enforcement Policy, also known as the Zero Tolerance Policy. It directs industry operations investigators to consider all circumstances of the inspection rather than apply automatic outcomes, ensuring ATF uses its ATF authority fairly and effectively. The update is about getting it right and making sure we're focused on public safety. Under the previous policy, some licensees were being penalized for simple mistakes such as forgetting to put their license number on the forms. This new guidance gives our investigators the discretion to tell the difference between an honest mistake and a real threat to public safety. Law-abiding dealers deserve a system that treats them fairly, not like suspects. They are our partners and the first line of defense in our efforts to combat firearms trafficking. And just like that, Acting Director Driscoll, in just a few sentences, said a mouthful. And that just shows how Acting Director Driscoll is so much different than the yes boy Stephen Dettelbach was. How he kissed Joe Biden and the administration's ass every chance he could to ultimately try to take away our Second Amendment rights. So what exactly are the changes? I'm going to pop up on the screen first the memo sent out by the ATF, and you guys can pause it and read it for yourself. But here's some of the key bullet points. Context-driven enforcement. Serious, willful violations may lead to administrative action, while minor or clerical errors may be addressed with education or warnings. No automatic revocation removes the prior policy's presumption of license revocation, instead considering intent, compliance history, and public safety risks. Next is stronger public safety focus. Investigators must evaluate whether continued operations pose a public safety threat or contribute to violent crime, and whether the licensee demonstrates the ability to comply moving forward. Next is clear legal standards and timelines, defines key terms such as willful and knowing, and establishes uniform timelines for reviews, actions, and coordination. And lastly, support for lawful industry engagement. ATF continues early intervention and collaboration with responsible licensees while firmly addressing repeat or serious violations. So instead of the Biden way, if the ATF found just a minor paperwork error, they could and would revoke the licenses of FFLs. But not every violation is a willful act. A lot of them are just paperwork mistakes. And the new policy actually defines willful as a purposeful disregard of, a plain indifference to, or a reckless disregard of a known legal obligation. So inadvertent, accidental, and occasional mistakes in paperwork will no longer lead to the loss of the livelihood of the FFLs. All that had to be applied towards these FFLs was just common sense. But of course, with the past 4 years of the Biden administration, there was no common sense whatsoever. If an FFL was selling firearms and not having people fill out 4473s, then that's a bad FFL, and their license needed to be revoked. But if someone forgot to put their license number on the 4473, or forgot to dot an I or cross a T, what is more dangerous to the country? The FFL that made minor paperwork mistakes that were accidents, or an FFL was selling firearms without anybody filling out 4473s? Because most likely these firearms were going to be trafficked to Mexico. Those of us that have common sense know which one is worse for our country. But according to the Biden administration and the ATF's rules, there was no difference whatsoever between the two things. And that's just absolutely ridiculous. During the Biden administration, there were a record number of FFL revocations. And basically, for 4 years, the Biden administration, including the Biden ATF, the Biden FBI, and other three-letter agencies, they used the weight of the government to go after law-abiding gun owners and law-abiding FFLs to try to cripple our Second Amendment rights. And they might have succeeded for a while, but now those dark days are over, and there's a new sheriff in town, and they are starting to make a big difference in what is happening in this country and around the world, and also with our Second Amendment rights. This is a huge improvement over the Biden administration's zero tolerance policy. It's been basically turned around 360 degrees, which of course is a great thing. And I hope President Trump, Pam Bondi, and acting ATF Director Driscoll actually will look into the FFLs that were revoked during the past 4 years. And it'll take a while because there's hundreds and hundreds of them, and go over each one of them. And for the ones that were doing bad things, of course they're not going to get their FFL back, but they should make every effort for the ones that lost their licenses just because of minor paperwork errors. They need to get in contact with them, and they need to offer them back their FFL for no cost. And actually, with the hundreds of billions of dollars and even trillions of dollars that have already been saved in the past 6 months, they could use a little bit of that money, if the FFLs want to get their businesses back up and running. That's the right thing to do. So this is other fantastic news for the Second Amendment. And I'd like to hear from you guys in the comment section what you think about the new regulations for FFLs and ATF agents. And as always, I appreciate everybody that supports the channel, not only by watching the videos, but after watching those videos, the folks that like, share, and subscribe and hit those post notifications, I'm very grateful that you do so. It helps the channel out and helps it continue to grow. And I invite all of you to come back and watch my next video.